Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. On my way driving here to LA, doing a half marathon like this Halloween rock and roll. It's my third half marathon for this year. Don't worry, those of you that are worried about me driving. I'm not holding the cell phone. I got a holder. It's mounted, so I'm focusing on driving. But I figured I might as well multitask, right? I listen to some audiobooks. Now I'm driving. I'm like, okay, I can shoot some videos while I'm driving. Why not, right? So, what I want to talk about today is something that I think is really important. That I wouldn't want to come off the wrong way here with this, because it can really come off as bragging. But I don't even care. Like, it's so many people are worried about that. Like, if you're bragging or if you're just trying to tell people the truth. Sometimes it's weird because I think a lot of us are real uncomfortable about talking about money and things like that, because we're like, people will be jealous and think we're bragging. But if you want to make a lot of money, you got to be able to talk about money. You got to be able to be transparent about it. You got to be able to say, hey, I have $1 million. I'm a millionaire. Okay, fine. Let's talk about how I got there. Let's not talk about whatever. Anyone can do it. So. Anyway, that's not what I would talk about today. Well, sort of. What I want to talk about is giving. Okay, and I don't want to use the word tithing. Okay, some people, tithing, whatever. I'm not going to even get into the debate, right, of whether or not tithing is, for those of you that are religious, biblical or not, or required. Because that doesn't matter. Because that's not. There's a greater principle at work here, and whether you're religious or not, I hope that you can follow and not get lost into the letter of the law type of thing, and understand the spirit of what I'm talking about here. Okay, and if you're not religious at all, this still applies to you. Okay, dude, let me tell you, this still applies to you. I am still talking to you because it still matters and it still makes a difference. So I think a lot of people, right, and I alluded to this in a different video. I don't remember which video, but I talked about this idea that, and I mentioned that if you're not giving now, right? If you're not giving some percentage of the income that you're making now, right, to charity, to a good cause, to something like that, and you're like, because I don't have enough money. When you make more money, it's not going to be easier. A lot of people use that excuse, and that's a bullshit, lame excuse. Because I'm telling you, from someone who's wasn't making a lot of money and is now making a lot of money, okay, that the checks that I write now for charity are big checks, okay? What I've kind of committed to, and I'll talk about that in a minute here, because I think some of you are curious, and I think it's a good example here, but what I have committed to now, right, those checks, making the kind of money that I'm able to make, those are big checks, and those are hard to stomach checks to write, but I've committed to doing this, right? And if I hadn't started at the smaller level, I would not be able to, when I got up to the bigger level of making the money that I do now, I wouldn't be able to write those checks. I'll tell you, because those are big checks, okay? So what am I talking about here? All right, so I really strongly encourage you, no matter who you are, to take some percentage of the money you make, and you can determine how you want to do this. You want to do this before taxes, after taxes, whatever. I do it after taxes because I'm already donating my money. That's how I do it. I know some people do it before taxes and whatever, but I do after taxes, right? Like what I calculate for taxes, basically for the money I get, that I get to spend, I take 10% of that, and currently what I do is I give it to a charity that I have filtered that I know is legitimate, that basically, like, almost all the money, like 99% of it, goes to orphans in India, okay? And there's a reason why I do that. If you're curious, I'll sidetrack here. Why that charity, you can do whatever you want, but I'll tell you why that charity. I know that money is going to people who can't help themselves, who need it. I know it's making a huge impact, okay, right? Because India is a poorer country, and these orphans, right? That money to them is huge, right? It's big. Now, I'm not knocking other charities. Maybe you want to save the whales or something. Okay, fine. But I do but you should be a good steward, you know, of your money. You can't just get off by saying, okay, well, I'm just giving away 10% of my money. Okay, well, that's cool, but you know what? If you give it to some shyster, some scam artist, okay, who doesn't actually use it for good, in fact, maybe even uses it for bad, you've just enabled that. You've made things worse in the world. You haven't done something good, and you haven't been a good steward. And if you can't be a good steward of the money that you're giving, like, you're going to have a serious problem. Now, if you want a good book on this, there's actually a surprisingly good book called Titan. It's a biography of Rockefeller. And some of you don't like Rockefeller and big oil, but man, you got to read his biography, because this dude, he was very, very tight with his finances, and he, especially, one of the things that stressed him out more than anything in life was being a good steward of his giving, and he was quite the philanthropist. So he gave a lot of money. So anyway, so that's what I do. So I take my money, right, and I calculate, all right, how much money I make, estimate the taxes, and then I take 10% and I write my check, and that goes out to that charity every month. But here's the thing, okay? This is where I'm getting at, like, because a lot of you are like, oh, you know, religious? No, it doesn't have anything to do with religion, really. You know, I chose the number 10% because I think that's a good reference point. That's a good day. I feel that number, right? 10% is significant. I feel that number. It hurts to write that check, right? It sort of hurts to write the check. I enjoy writing the check because I know that I'm benefiting, but you know, when I have a big influx of cash and it's a big check, you know, there's a little bit of that feeling, right? So why am I saying this though? Because I'll tell you a true story. I started doing this about, gosh, what's it been? I want to say 15 years ago. No, 13 years ago, I think, right? Up to that point, I wasn't really, you know, I give $20 in the offering plate at church, okay? I started giving the 10%, okay? And initially, the reason why I did it was because there was a biblical promise that essentially said you can't outgive God. You know, if you, right? Some of you biblical scholars are familiar with that text. I don't want to go into religion, right? This is why I'm trying to avoid that. But that's initially what made. I was like, okay, well, if I believe this, I should trust this, right? So I did. The very first time I gave that 10%, my wife got a raise for the exact amount that in fact, she started it. Actually, I didn't even give it out of my money first. She said she wanted to start giving 10%. So she gave it out of her check, and she got a raise for the exact amount that covered that 10%. Shortly after I started doing it, and as soon as I did that, bam, I got another, like, some cash came in and for exactly the amount that I'd given out, right? And I ended up getting a raise. And basically, when I chart my, like, income from year to year, there's like this, you know, where it's kind of steady, and then the point, the inflection point is where I started giving money, where I started faithfully giving 10%, and I hate to use the word faithful, but again, because I don't want to apply religious connotations. I don't want you who are not religious to think you're off the hook. You're not off the hook on this, and I'm getting to why, right? I hope you're following this, because this is really important. You want to get rich? Pay attention to what I'm saying here, because this is really important, okay? So when I started doing it, if you look at that inflection point and you look at the money that I made, okay, what ends up happening is that you can see exactly, like, you could look at that and look at my income. I wish I had a chart. I should have put one for here, but I'm driving. But anyway, you can look and you can see exactly where I started giving 10%. You can see it. And the more that I give, the more it grows. And I give in other ways and stuff like that. There's some principle that, you know, it puts you in this sort of mindset of abundance instead of scarcity. I've done a video, I think, on abundance mindset anyway versus scarcity. But it's real. It works. And the thing is, like, it makes you work harder. It makes you hustle a little bit more. Now you feel it, right? You feel that pain, and you realize that, you know, to some degree, right? And a lot of this is subconscious, but you realize that there's money out there that is out, that you have enough to give. You realize how much you have, right? And that what it does is it keeps you from holding on to things that too tightly. And when you hold on to things too tightly in life, you miss opportunities. You're like a miser, right? You want to be the opposite of a miser. The more generous you are, the more that you give, the more loosely you hold things in life in general, right? Just as a general principle, the more that's going to come to you. It's sort of one of those ironic things. So if you're not, right, it doesn't have to be 10%, who cares, right? And it doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to go to a religious organization, right? If you are, maybe you should, right? Support what you profess to believe in. Some people say they believe in stuff, but they don't put any faith in it, all right? But anyway, you should figure out some percentage, right, that you are going to give, okay? And you got to figure it out now. I don't care where you're at financially. You've got enough money. Trust me. You can eat ramen noodles. You can, right? There's some things you can do to cut your costs down. In fact, this will help you, right? Because when you got to figure out a way to give 10%, you got to figure out a way to tighten the belt loop, which is a good exercise where you'll realize how much slack you have in that belt, okay? But figure out some percentage, okay? And do it now, and faithfully do that, because when you do that, okay, you can take my word on this, you're going to see growth. You're going to see your money multiply. You're going to see it. When you're generous with your money, when you're giving it faithfully, I promise you, again, I'm not saying this from a religious, right? I'm saying this from a principle standpoint, okay? So this applies to you atheists out there, all right? I wish you'd be agnostic instead of atheist, but okay, we'll find, we can differ on that. But when you start doing that, your income's going to grow. And when your income grows, if you can faithfully keep doing it, it's going to be harder, okay? It's going to keep on growing, right? But if you're holding on to this fantasy that, oh, someday when I'm rich, I'm going to be philanthropist and give. No. What you're doing is you're going to become a miser, okay? If you do finally make that money, it's going to be so hard for you to make. You're going to be holding on so damn tight that you're not going to let anyone take it from you, and it's going to limit your growth. And it's going to limit your, not just your financial growth, but your personal growth, okay? There's something about, I have no problem making more money. Let me tell you why. Because some people have this hang up. I'll tell you why I have no problem making more money. Asking for money for stuff that I create, right? I sell products. You can check out my products here and support. Because 10% of that profit that I make, it's going to help people. So the more money I make, I would like to write a check someday. I would like to say, have $1 million that I gave in a year. $1 million. That'd be, how awesome would that be, right? That's a good incentive. So that'll keep you going. All right. Anyway, this video is going a little long, but I think this is really important. Really, really important stuff here that I'm sharing with you. If you like this video, click the subscribe button down below, and you can subscribe to the channel. If you want to commit, I'm all about commitments and taking action. So I'll tell you what, if you want to publicly commit, tell me what percentage of money that you're going to give of your income every month, and you can even tell me what charity if you want. If you don't want to, but commit here. Let's do it, right? Let's do this, okay? So anyway, click the subscribe button, leave your comment below. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.